Hi, mystery writers. Welcome to Write a Killer Mystery, where we talk about making a good mystery great. And today I have a unique way of coming up with obstacles for your protagonist. My name is Zara Altair. I'm a mystery writer and also teach Write a Killer Mystery. First, before we get into our topic today, I want to thank my supporters on Patreon who help support this video series and my writing. And if you'd like to support this series, there's a link in the description below. All right, so this is my idea, and it's take apart your sleuth to set up problems. I know if you are planning your mystery, you need to come up with a lot of setbacks and obstacles and problems for your sleuth that get in the way of their investigation. And also, in a traditional mystery, it's often the case that the protagonist does not have what is called a story arc, where there's this gigantic change at the end of the story. But this method also helps you connect your reader to the protagonist emotionally, because unlike many genres, your sleuth does not need to learn a lesson as the story progresses, and you can deepen a character and make those story events feel more personal for the reader by matching character traits and obstacles that are opposite of those character traits. And these elicit an understanding, a reader understanding, a deeper understanding of your character. So, for those who are in Write a Killer Mystery, you know that the very first lesson is meet your detective. And you develop your detective character for your story. And you establish their character traits. And, of course, one of their traits is their ability to solve crimes. And as you put together your protagonist's strengths and weaknesses, you're also setting up ways to challenge your sleuth by playing off those strengths and weaknesses. So that's what I want to talk about today. So I'd have a little exercise for you, and it's like, find the opposite of each character trait. So in order to set up challenges for your sleuth that feel integral to your story, you don't want them to just kind of fall out of the sky. You want them to feel like part of your character and part of the story. You want to create problems that play off both the strengths and the weaknesses of your character. And even with strengths, you can have too much of a good thing, for instance. And you can expose weaknesses as you create opposition through settings and other characters. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples here. So say your character's strength is critical thinking, which is absolutely essential for a detective. And the opposite can be overthinking when it's time for action. Okay, that's an example of a character's strength and their opposition. They should be taking action, but they're still like going through their lists and comparing evidence. And so that's one way you can take a strength and create its opposite and create a problem in the story. So another way would be, say, a weakness. Say your character has a soft spot for kids. All right, that's a perfect Save the Cat example, if you're familiar with Save the Cat. And the opposite is all of a sudden your protagonist has to deal with a kid that lies with charm. You know, he's a real hustler, even though he's a kid. So, and then another example might be a character who has, great physical strength. They're training, they work out. And the opposite could be that they're like a bull in a china shop when they get to a crime scene. This is just a huge no-no for detectives, is you want to make sure that you preserve the evidence at all costs, especially evidence that can disappear quickly. So anyway, you get the idea. If you think of the opposite of that strength or weakness and create a situation that is going to challenge your sleuth. So let's take a look, go a little further, and think about brainstorming traditional novel obstacles. Because if you go online and do a search, you're going to find lots of articles with lists of obstacles that you can create for your protagonist in your story. But the trick for good writing is to actually make those obstacles work for your particular character and their personality traits. And that's what today's session is all about. Making those obstacles like integral to your story. So even if they turn out wrong, as your sleuth solves crime, they create plans and goals for reaching their objective. So let's look at some ways to use traditional storytelling obstacles and match them up with your sleuth's strengths and weaknesses. Okay, so one obstacle is intellectual obstacles, and that's really important for a sleuth who, as we said, has a lot of critical thinking. Intellectual obstacles are part and parcel of challenging your sleuth's critical thinking skills, and your sleuth must discern the false clues from actual evidence. And as they need to sort through the information from suspects, often hidden by lies and misdirection, there's a lot of opportunity for your sleuth's intellectual capabilities to be challenged. So if you have a smart sleuth, think of ways that seem plausible and logical that you lead your sleuth in the wrong direction. Okay? They've got their critical thinking cap on, and they make a decision according to their thinking, and oops, these result in disappointment and frustration. So they're going to have to put on their thinking cap again. Okay, that's just one example of intellectual challenge. Okay, and then physical challenge. This could be anything. There's just so many. But for example, if your sleuth hates the heat and doesn't function well, if they're like me and kind of turn into a soggy rag when it's hot, crank up the temperature in your story. And if their sleuth is diminutive and uses their thinking skills, match them with a big locked door that they must enter. So how are they going to? They're just too small to like kick in the door like you see in the movies. So the idea with physical traits is to create challenges that impact your sleuth's physical limitations. Another example is social, how they function in the world around them. So whatever your sleuth's background, pit them against someone from another social strata. Your sleuth will need to deal with the other character's misperceptions of who they, the sleuth, are, and vice versa. Your sleuth may be uncomfortable surrounded by the very poor, or feel resentment when confronted with people with power. And then I'm giving these examples just so you can see how you want those challenges to really match up in an opposition to your sleuth strengths and weaknesses. And I think this is going to make it much easier for you to come up with challenges along the way. Okay, I'm just keep going with a couple more. So emotional challenges. So they create powerful connections with your reader. So you want those emotional challenges in your story. So pit your sleuth emotional challenges against not only their external goal, finding the villain, but their uncertainties and foibles in personal interactions with friends and peers. For instance, does your sleuth shy away from emotional entanglements? Are they, their commitment, reluctant? And then they meet someone they like. Do they mess it up to keep from being committed? And if they're afraid of heights, do they put them at the top of the tower chasing a villain? Just mix up those emotional feelings and the weaknesses your sleuth has, and think of what is something that is opposite that would actually challenge my sleuth. Okay. And then another one that comes up a lot in modern day stories is political challenges. And even if your sleuth believes they are apolitical, they're just doing their job, as it were. I can't talk. Politics impacts their investigation. And so you can think of internal politics for someone in law enforcement, to powers that be in the local community intruding into the investigation. So you can challenge your sleuth with power politics, and don't forget those other strengths and weaknesses that are going to come into play when they get this political challenge. Okay, so why matching challenges to your character's traits work? This is why I thought I'd talk about this today. When you take the character-based approach to creating challenges for your mystery sleuth, you deepen the character and build reader connection to your protagonist. That's what you want. You want your reader to be really involved, to care about your sleuth. If what you're presenting are intellectual challenges only, they're going to challenge your sleuth, and it's going to be hard for them to solve the crime, you'll get your reader much more emotionally involved if you can bring in those challenges to their personal strengths and weaknesses. Challenges matched to your sleuth character imply an organic sense to that storyline. And rather than simply creating new challenges, you create obstacles based on your character's personality. This is like they just slam up against something that they don't like or they're afraid of, or it challenges their personal belief system. So the conflict feels personal to the reader who's all this time rooting for your sleuth, and it helps them root for your sleuth because they feel this emotional attachment. So the twists that lead your detective in a new direction or temporarily knock them sideways become integral to understanding your character. And then when you are stuck for a new twist, look for a character trait and brainstorm a conflict that's in opposition to that trait. Okay, that's it for today, and I hope that helped. And once again, I want to thank Audible for sponsoring write a killer mystery. We've had kind of a hiatus. They changed their system of connection, so we've had a few episodes without that connection. But right now I'm listening to California Fire and Ice by Don Winslow. It's fabulous. It's insurance investigator looking into not only an arson but a possible murder of someone who was in the fire. It's one of his earlier works. It was written in the 90s and it's set in the 90s. It's a great story. As always, I love Don Winslow. And I like listening to audiobooks because I can listen while I'm driving. I can listen while I'm doing chores. I can listen when I'm outside working in the yard, and it's just a lot of fun. So be sure to click the link below to get your 30-day free trial. All right, thank you so much. Ask me questions and keep writing, and I'll see you next time.